Egyptian skies. Ancient Egypt and the eternal stars. If you're here to fall asleep, you're in the right place. We're standing in ancient Egypt. 3,000 years ago. On the roof of a temple. Watching stars that never set. Circumpolar stars. Eternal stars. Stars the Egyptians believed were the imperishable souls of pharaohs. The Egyptians looked at the night sky and saw immortality. Saw navigation. Saw the rhythm of their civilization written in starlight. Close your eyes if you haven't already. Let your body sink down. Into stillness. Into the deep rest that waits like the Nile at night, dark and eternal and flowing. Breathe with me. In through your nose. Slowly. Like drawing in the warm desert night air of ancient Egypt, carrying the scent of the Nile and papyrus. Hold for just a moment. And out through your mouth. Long and slow. Like the slow rotation of circumpolar stars around the celestial pole. Again. In. The breath of ancient nights when pharaohs became stars. Hold. Suspended like Sirius rising before dawn, heralding the flood. And out. Releasing into the eternal cycles of Nile, stars, seasons, death and rebirth. One more time. In. Drawing from 3,000 years ago when astronomy was religion and religion was astronomy. Hold. The stillness of a desert night. When stars seem close enough to touch. And out. Surrendering to the rhythm of Egypt, where everything revolved around the stars and the river. Let's begin. Part 1. The Egyptian Sky. The Nile Valley, 3000 to 300 BCE. You are standing on the roof of a temple. Karnak perhaps. Or Dendera. The year is approximately 1500 BCE. New Kingdom Egypt. The height of Egyptian civilization. Below you, the Nile flows north, dark and silent. Palm trees. Mud brick houses. Stone temples. The desert beyond. But you are not here for the earth. You are here for the sky. Above you, the Egyptian night. So clear the stars seem painted on a black dome just overhead. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like a celestial Nile. And to the north, the circumpolar stars, stars that never set, that circle the pole star endlessly, visible every night of the year. These circumpolar stars were sacred to Egyptians. They called them the imperishable ones. The indestructible stars. They never disappeared below the horizon. They never died. They circled eternally around the celestial pole. This made them different from other stars that rose and set, that died in the west and were reborn in the east. The Egyptians believed these imperishable stars were the souls of pharaohs and gods. When a pharaoh died, his soul ascended to join the circumpolar stars. He became imperishable, eternal, never setting, always visible. This was immortality, not resurrection of the body but transformation into eternal starlight. The pyramid texts, some of the oldest religious texts in the world, say, "The king is a star. The king appears as a star. The king is bound for the sky among the imperishable stars." Death was not an end but a cosmic promotion. From mortal king to eternal star. But Egyptian astronomy wasn't just religion. It was practical. Essential. The entire Egyptian civilization depended on understanding the stars. Egypt had no rain. Crops depended completely on the Nile flood. Every year, around mid-July, the Nile would rise, overflow its banks, flood the fields, deposit rich silt. This flood made agriculture possible. Without it, Egypt would be desert. The flood was life itself. But how do you know when the flood is coming? How do you prepare? The Egyptians watched Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky. The Egyptians called it Sopdet. We call it the dog star. For most of the year, Sirius is visible at night. But for about 70 days, it's too close to the sun to be seen. It sets in the west just after sunset and doesn't reappear until dawn. One morning in mid-July, Sirius rises in the east just before the sun. This is called the heliacal rising. The first day you can see Sirius rising before dawn. And this event, the heliacal rising of Sirius, coincided almost exactly with the beginning of the Nile flood. The Egyptians noticed this. Sirius returns, the Nile floods. Every year. Perfectly timed. To them, this was not coincidence. Sirius, the goddess Sopdet, caused the flood, or announced it, or was synchronized with it by the gods. The mechanism didn't matter. The correlation was perfect. So Egyptian astronomers watched for Sirius. When it reappeared, they knew the flood was days away. They could prepare. Move animals to high ground. Prepare storage for grain. Ready boats. The star gave them warning. Time to prepare for the most important event of the year. This made astronomy critical. The entire Egyptian calendar was based on Sirius. The Egyptian year began with the heliacal rising of Sirius. New Year's Day was when Sirius returned. This was also the beginning of the flood season. The beginning of the agricultural cycle, the beginning of everything. The Egyptians had 3 seasons: Ake, flood; Parate, growing; Shimu, harvest. Each season was 4 months. 12 months total, each 30 days long, plus 5 extra days at the end to make 365 days total. This solar calendar, based on the Sirius cycle and the sun's annual motion, was one of the most accurate calendars in the ancient world. And they used stars for navigation. The Nile flows north. If you're sailing south, you're going upstream. If you're going north, you're going downstream. Simple on the river. But at night? How do you know directions? Stars. Circumpolar stars to the north. Orion rising in the east. Other constellations they knew. Egyptian sailors navigated the Nile by stars as surely as Polynesian sailors navigated the Pacific. The difference was scale, not technique. Egyptian priests created star clocks, tables showing which stars rise at what hours of the night through the year. These were painted on tomb ceilings, carved on temple walls. They allowed telling time at night. First hour of night, this constellation rises. Sixth hour, this other constellation. Knowing. The time was important for religious rituals that had to be performed at specific hours. The Egyptians also tracked the planets. They knew Venus, Jupiter, Mars, Saturn, Mercury. They associated them with gods. They didn't have the mathematical sophistication of the Mesopotamians, but they recorded planetary positions, noted their movements, used them in religious contexts. Imagine being an Egyptian priest astronomer. It's a warm night in Thebes. You're on the temple roof. Your task tonight, watch for Sirius. It's been gone for 70 days, invisible in the sun's glare. But calculations suggested should reappear soon. You look east. The sky is lightening. Dawn approaches. And there, just above the horizon, a bright point of light. Sirius. The goddess Sopdet returns. You note the exact position, the exact time. You inform the high priest. He informs the pharaoh. Preparations for the flood begin. In a few days, the Nile will rise. The fields will flood. The agricultural cycle will begin anew. All because you watched the stars. All because Sopdet returned as she always does. All because the cosmos is predictable and can be read. Let this ancient sky stay with you as you drift into sleep. The Egyptian stars. The imperishable ones that never set. Sirius heralding the flood. The celestial Nile stretching overhead. The souls of pharaohs shining eternal. Rest now under stars that ancient Egyptians believed were gods and kings. The same stars they navigated by. The same stars that marked their seasons. The same eternal patterns linking sky and earth and Nile. What did the ancient Egyptians understand about the stars? What did they discover through 3,000 years of watching the night sky? First, they understood that the sky is a clock. Different stars rise at different times of night and year. If you know which stars rise when, you can tell time. The Egyptians created Deccan tables, lists of stars, or star groups, that rise at 10-day intervals throughout the year. 36 decans total. Each decan marks 10 days of the year. These decans were painted on coffin lids and tomb ceilings. Why? So the dead could tell time in the afterlife. The soul needed to know when to perform rituals, when to travel, when to rest. Time mattered even in eternity. The stars provided that time. At night, 12 decans would rise, one each hour. This gave them the 12-hour night. The day was also divided into 12 hours. This is why we have 24-hour days, an Egyptian invention based on stellar observation. Second, they understood the connection between celestial and earthly cycles. Sirius rises, the Nile floods. This was empirical observation confirmed over thousands of years. The correlation was perfect enough to base an entire calendar on it. The heliacal rising of Sirius marked New Year's Day. The beginning of Ake, the flood season. Everything started from that moment. But they also noticed the seasons themselves correlated with star positions. Orion visible in winter. Other constellations in summer. The sky changed. through the year in predictable patterns. These patterns matched agricultural seasons. Stars could tell farmers when to plant, when to expect harvest. This made astronomy agricultural science. Not abstract study of distant lights, but practical knowledge for survival. Knowing stars meant knowing when to work the land, when to expect the flood, when to harvest. Star knowledge was life knowledge. Third, they understood celestial orientation. Egyptian temples were oriented astronomically. Many face east toward sunrise. On important dates, some align with stars. The pyramids are famously aligned to cardinal directions with remarkable precision. The Great Pyramid sides face almost exactly north, south, east, west. How did they achieve this? Stars. Specifically, circumpolar stars. Egyptian astronomers observed circumpolar stars circling the celestial North Pole. By carefully measuring their positions at different times of night, they could determine true north. This knowledge allowed perfect orientation of massive structures. The pyramid texts speak of the pharaoh's soul ascending to join the circumpolar stars, the imperishable ones. The very architecture pointed to those stars. North shafts in pyramids aimed at circumpolar stars. The pyramid was a machine for launching the pharaoh's soul to its eternal home in the northern sky. Fourth, they understood the planets are different from stars. The word planet means wanderer. The Egyptians knew 5 planets: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. They called them wandering stars because, unlike fixed stars, planets move against the stellar background. They tracked these movements, recorded positions, associated planets with gods. Venus, brightest of planets, was particularly important. It appears as evening star, visible after sunset, and morning star, visible before sunrise, but is the same planet. The Egyptians knew this. They called it both the morning star and evening star, but understood it was one wandering star appearing at different times. They noticed Venus follows a cycle. It appears as evening star, disappears, reappears as morning star, disappears again, returns as evening star. This cycle takes about 584 days. The Egyptians tracked this cycle, used it in religious contexts. Venus was associated with the goddess Isis, central to Egyptian religion. Fifth, they understood astronomical knowledge must be recorded and transmitted. Egyptian astronomical texts were inscribed on temple walls, tomb ceilings, papyri. They were not casual observations but formal records. Star clocks, decan lists, tables of heliacal risings, planetary positions. This knowledge was guarded by priests. Astronomy was esoteric knowledge, not for common people. Only trained priests learned to read the stars, to use the tables, to predict astronomical events. This made priests powerful. They alone could tell the pharaoh when religious ceremonies should occur, could predict the flood, could orient temples correctly. But they also taught students. Knowledge passed from master astronomer to apprentice, generation after generation, for 3,000 years. This continuity meant improvements accumulated. Better tables, More accurate predictions. Refined understanding. Sixth, they understood the stars connected to the afterlife. This is uniquely Egyptian. Other cultures saw stars as gods or navigational tools or calendar markers. Egyptians saw all that, but also saw stars as the destination of the dead. The sky was the afterlife. The circumpolar stars were the imperishable ones, where souls went after death. The Book of the Dead contains spells for the soul's journey to the stars. Instructions for navigating the afterlife using stellar landmarks. The deceased becomes a star, joins Osiris and the gods, circles eternally around the north celestial pole. This is heaven, not a separate realm but the visible sky, the stars we all see. This belief motivated their astronomical precision. If your soul needs to navigate to the stars after death, you better know exactly where those stars are. Astronomy was literally a matter of eternal life or death. Seventh, they understood astronomy connects to mathematics. Egyptian astronomy required calculation, predicting heliacal risings, calculating Deccan tables, determining cardinal directions from star positions. This required geometry, trigonometry, in primitive form, careful measurement, numerical tables. The Egyptians developed mathematical techniques specifically for astronomy. These techniques were used for other purposes too, surveying land after the flood erased boundaries, constructing buildings, calculating taxes. But astronomy drove mathematical innovation. Need to solve an astronomical problem? Invent the mathematics to solve it. All this from watching stars. From patient observation over centuries. From taking the practical problem, when will the Nile flood? And finding the celestial solution, when Sirius rises. From connecting sky and earth, stars and river, astronomy and agriculture and religion and immortality into one coherent system. Let this knowledge stay with you as you drift into deepest sleep. Egyptian astronomers watching eternal stars. Sirius returning to herald the flood. Souls of pharaohs joining the imperishable stars. The integration of heaven and earth in one civilization, one river, one sky. Rest now under stars ancient Egyptians believed were the afterlife, where souls go to shine eternal, where circumpolar stars circle forever. Imperishable, always visible, never setting, never dying. The cosmos turns. The Nile flows. The stars circle. All in patterns Egyptians read and lived by. All continuing today exactly as 3,000 years ago. Sleep well knowing that the stars are eternal. That patterns persist. That humans have watched these same stars for millennia and found in them guidance, timekeeping, navigation, and hope of immortality. And so our night in ancient Egypt ends. 25 minutes on a temple roof. Watching stars with Egyptian astronomers. Learning what they understood about the eternal patterns above. We stood under stars so clear and bright they seemed within reach. The circumpolar stars circling the pole endlessly, the imperishable ones, souls of pharaohs transformed to eternal light. Sirius rising before dawn to announce the Nile flood. The Milky Way like a celestial river. We learned that Egyptians didn't just observe stars, they integrated them. into every aspect of life. Stars determined their calendar, marked their seasons, guided their ships, oriented their temples, housed their dead. The sky and earth were one system, one cosmos, one interconnected whole. Tonight, as you drift into sleep, you rest under the same stars. Sirius still rises. The circumpolar stars still circle. The patterns remain unchanged. What changed was human understanding, and Egypt contributed greatly to that understanding. You are small. The cosmos is vast. But 3,000 years ago, Egyptians watched that vastness and found in it order, predictability, meaning. They found their calendar, their seasons, their path to immortality all written in starlight. Sleep now under stars the ancient Egyptians called the imperishable ones. Stars that never set. Stars that shine eternal. Stars that welcomed pharaohs after death. Stars that mark time and seasons and the turning of the cosmos. Good night from ancient Egypt. From temple roofs in Thebes and Memphis and Dendera. From priests watching for Sirius. From souls ascending to join the stars. From 3,000 years of astronomical observation and religious devotion intertwined. The Nile flows north as it always has. The stars circle overhead as they always have. The imperishable ones shine eternal. All exactly as Egyptian astronomers first understood. Rest well, star soul. The eternal patterns continue. The sky remembers. You join a tradition of stargazing that stretches back to the pyramids, to the pharaohs, to the first Egyptians who looked up and saw not chaos but eternal order. All is cycle. All is pattern. All is exactly as it should be. Good night.